We talked about Medea earlier, and a lot of people know me as Medea, but there's something that a lot of people don't know that I want to share with you. I was a child that was born to two wounded parents, and they were wounded children themselves. My mother was 17 and my father was about 19 when they got married, and I came along when she was 24 years old. And there was a lot of pain in the house. There were a lot of arguments. He was very physically abusive and verbally abusive to the both of us. It was really a difficult and very hard time, especially for a man child. I don't know what it's like for a little girl, but I'm sure it's just as painful. But for a boy child, a man child, to watch his mother being beaten and belittled, it was really, really hard. So I went under the house and I built this little, put some wood up in between some of the pillars and built this little safe place for me. And I painted it robinette blue. I had found some paint somewhere, painted it blue, and I would sit in this room and I would let my imagination take me to other places. I would just be somewhere running through grass and trees while I'm listening to all of the pain and all of the heartache up above me in the floorboards. So it was a very difficult time. But the beauty in that moment, and I say this to people all the time, is that I know that all things work together for your good. When I am writing a script or a movie, or writing the Have and Have-Nots, or if Loving You Is Wrong, or writing any of these shows or movies, in my imagination, I go to a place where I'm in that world. And that was formed and born inside of all that pain. So the little boy's imagination is where the man goes now to feed his dreams. So it's a beautiful thing when you know that all things are going to work together for your good. Yeah, what broke in the moment, if you wonder what happened, like from the time when I started doing these shows to the time when they started to take off, what broke in the moment? Well, here I was with this script about adult survivors of child abuse whose parents had abused them. And the characters in the show that I had written from my own mind had forgiven their abusers, but I hadn't forgiven my father. So one day we were on the phone before this show sold out, before everything changed. We were on the phone and I got a chance to just say everything that was on my mind, because I wasn't the little boy anymore. I was a 6'6" man and I wasn't afraid. And I started saying everything that I needed to say to him. And the things that came out of my mouth blew my mind. But at the end of it, what I heard was, I forgive you. I said, I forgive you to him. And something shifted in me. Something shifted. Let me tell you something. Forgiveness is so incredibly powerful. Forgiveness is not for the other person. It is for you. There are people living their lives who've done you wrong. They are happy walking down the street, not even thinking about you. But there you are holding on to unforgiveness. When I forgave this man, I found myself I was lost for a second, because my entire fuel was based on the negativity of not forgiving him. But once I forgave him, I had to find a way to find another source of fuel. So the negativity and all the darkness that I'd been through was the source. Now I needed a more positive source. Now I needed a good source, a pure source. It's like taking a car that runs on diesel and putting regular gasoline in it. And then all of a sudden you say drive, and something's gonna go wrong. So you have to rework all the components inside of your mind to be able to understand how to function in positivity. So that shift for me was so incredible. Forgiveness did all of that for me. And the minute I did that, the minute I started to function and doing the right thing and being positive, I went from nobody coming to the show to not having enough seats for the people to get into the places. This shocked a few people. They said, let's talk about your failures. I said, I don't have any. And I tell you why. I tell you why I say that. I tell you why I say that. Because when you know that everything in your life is going to work together for your good. Listen, I look back on all the things in my life that I thought that should have been a failure, that should have been a failure, that should have been. But when I really analyzed it, I realized those were teaching moments, those were molding moments, those were moving moments. And I realized, had that not happened, I wouldn't have been ready for this moment. Or had that situation not gone on, I wouldn't have been ready to go here. Had I not been able to live at that altitude, I wouldn't have been able to stand at this altitude. So what happened to me, as I look back on all those moments, I don't call them failures. I call them the grace of God, because it had brought me right where I needed to be. Listen, don't give up. I know that sounds simple, but don't give up. If you go to bed with it and you wake up with it, and you can't shake it, you go get a job and that dream is still in the back of your head. You're working for somebody else, but that dream is still in the back of your head. You're getting up every morning, 5 in the morning, going on somebody else's job. Let me tell you something. Honor that person that you're working for. Listen, because when you're faithful over someone else's, God will give you your own. So make sure you honor the person that you're working for. But at the same time, don't give up. The mantra at my studio is a place where even dreams believe. Because when I think about Joseph, he went through so much before he got into his promise. He was in jail. He got all these things happen to him. But when it got really bad and he gave up or wanted to give up, the dream reminded him that he can go on. So if it's in you and you can't shake it and you dream about it, and when you want to walk away from it, you still dream, that's God telling you to keep going. And if I can tell you anything else, please keep going. There are people whose lives and destiny are tied into you. Just think, had you stopped, all of these people, where would we be going to worship and hear a positive message? Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So don't stop. Keep going. No matter what anybody says, you are worth it. And here's the thing about worthy. Get to worthy. Whatever you do, get to worthy. What does that mean? Understand that you are worth it. You deserve the good things. If God said it, you deserve it. And he did. His thoughts of you are pure, and he wants to give you a hope. And here's how I know that it's going to be all right. The first 5 words of this text simply says, and it came to pass. Which means whatever you're going through did not come to stay. You're going to be all right. Abraham told his servants, stay here. This is the thing that blew my mind. Stay here. And we're going to go up and worship. But there's a little part of the verse where he says, and we will return to you. Well, Abraham, if you're going up to sacrifice your son, how do you know you're coming back with your son? When you have that kind of trust and that kind of faith in God, I don't care what it looks like, it's going to be all right. And Abraham turned and he named the place Jehovah Jireh, meaning God will provide. So the very thing you're worried about, don't worry about it, because God will provide. But Tyler, you don't understand. It's been difficult. It's been hard. God will provide. But Tyler, you don't understand. I love my wife and my husband. This has been really difficult, but you don't understand. God will provide. Just climb and maintain. Just pray and worship. Just climb and maintain. And if I can leave you with anything, I want to leave you with this. Hear me clearly when I say this. There are people who come in your life sometimes to be there for a season. They weren't meant to be there always. Sometimes we find ourselves hooked up with people that we think are there for a lifetime, but they were only supposed to be there for a season. There are people who come in your life like boosters for a rocket. If you ever watch a rocket go into space, the boosters fall off when it reaches a certain altitude. Some people are not equipped to handle the altitudes that you're going to. So don't be afraid when they fall off. They're not bad people. They just couldn't go where you're going.